Looney Tunes. Imagine staring at walls so thick that 6 horses could ride side by side on top. Walls so high they blocked out the sun. Walls that had never been conquered in over 1,000 years.
How does anyone conquer something like this without siege equipment?
But here's what's incredible. God was about to teach Joshua and all of Israel something that would change everything they thought they knew about victory. Something so amazing, so impossible, that people are still talking about it 3,000 years later. What would you do if God asked you to defeat the impossible, not with weapons or strength, but with something as simple as walking? This is the story of how obedience brought down walls that seemed unbreakable. And by the end, you'll discover a truth that could change how you face every impossible situation in your own life. Let me take you back to how this incredible story began. Joshua was a lot like any of us when we face something that seems impossible. He was brave, yes, but he was also nervous. He had big shoes to fill.
Moses, I wish you were here. You always knew what to do. These people are counting on me, and I'm not sure I'm ready for this.
You see, back then, cities like Jericho weren't just protected by walls. They were like giant fortresses where entire communities lived safely inside. The walls weren't just tall, they were incredibly thick, and everyone said they were impossible to break through.
Who are you? Are you for us or for our enemies?
Neither. I have come as commander of the army of the Lord.
What message does my Lord have for his servant?
Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground.
Joshua was about to learn something that every kid and grown-up needs to know. When God fights for us, it doesn't matter how big the walls are. But first, he had to learn that God's ways are very different from our ways.
See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. But you must do exactly what I tell you.
Have you ever had to trust someone when their plans sounded really strange? That's exactly what was about to happen to Joshua.
Let me make sure I understand this plan, Joshua. We're going to walk around the walls
Once a day for 6 days. All of us. In complete silence, except for the priests carrying the ark and blowing trumpets.
And on the 7th day?
7 times around. Then the priests blow a long trumpet blast, everyone shouts, and God says the walls will fall down flat.
Now, these were experienced military men. They'd fought battles before. They knew about battering rams, siege towers, and catapults. But walking? That was definitely not in any military handbook.
Joshua, with respect, the people of Jericho are probably watching us right now, laughing. They've got thick walls, plenty of food, and fresh water springs inside the city. They can wait us out for years.
Look at them down there. What are they planning to do? March us to death. I heard what their God did to Egypt and the Jordan River. Maybe we shouldn't be laughing.
This is one of those moments when obeying God doesn't make sense to anyone else. Have you ever been asked to do the right thing when everyone around you thinks it's silly or weird?
I know it sounds impossible, but I met the commander of the Lord's army yesterday, and he promised victory if we obey exactly. Not if we understand, not if it makes sense to us, but if we obey. Our God split the Red Sea, fed us in the desert for 40 years, and stopped the Jordan River. Do you think walls can stop him?
If God says march, we march. But Joshua, what do we tell the people when they ask questions?
We tell them the truth, that God's ways are higher than our ways, and his thoughts higher than our thoughts, and that sometimes the biggest victories come from the simplest obedience.
By evening, Word had spread through the entire camp. Some families were excited, others were worried, and many were simply confused. But they were about to learn something amazing about how God works. Sometimes God gives us more than just instructions. Sometimes He gives us understanding that changes everything.
Lord, I told them we would march, but I have to be honest. Part of me is scared too. What if I misunderstood? What if the people lose faith in you because of me?
Joshua, look at Jericho's walls. What do you see?
I see stone and mortar, guards and weapons, things that have kept enemies out for generations.
Now look with faith. What do walls mean to the God who created the mountains?
They're nothing to you. They're already defeated.
The battle belongs to me, Joshua. Your job is simply to obey and to teach my people that victory comes through trust, not through strength.
This is the moment when Joshua really understood. Just like when you finally get why your parents make certain rules, or why your teacher explains something in a new way. Sometimes we have to trust first, and understanding comes later.
Tell the people this march isn't just about conquering Jericho. It's about learning that when they face impossible situations in their lives, the same God who brings down walls will fight for them too.
I understand now. This isn't about military strategy. It's about teaching us who you are.
And Joshua, the children watching this week will remember this lesson for the rest of their lives. When they face their own impossible walls, they'll remember that their God is bigger. Be strong and courageous. I will never leave you nor forsake you.
Have you ever had a moment when you suddenly understood why something difficult was actually going to be good for you? That's what happened to Joshua that night. The next morning, something amazing happened. 40,000 people got ready to do something that had never been done before in the history of warfare.
Mama, why aren't we bringing swords? Because sometimes, sweetheart, God wants to show us that He can do things we never imagined. We're going to trust Him.
Picture this amazing parade. First came the soldiers, but their weapons were put away. Then came 7 priests carrying 7 trumpets. Behind them, other priests carried the Ark of the Covenant, which represented God's presence with His people.
Remember, complete silence except for the trumpets, no war cries, no talking, no questions until I give the command. Let your footsteps be your prayer.
Now here's what made this really hard. They had to stay completely quiet while they walked. Have you ever tried to keep quiet when you were nervous or excited? It's not easy.
What are they doing? This isn't how you attack a city.
Maybe it's some kind of magic. Look how organized they are. And those horns, they keep playing the same tune over and over.
As they walked, something beautiful started happening. Instead of worrying about the walls, people started thinking about God. Instead of fear, they began to feel peace. It took them several hours to walk all the way around Jericho. That's a long time to stay quiet and trust God. But something was happening with each step.
That was the strangest thing I've ever done. But also, I felt like God was really with us.
I haven't felt the Lord's presence that strongly since we crossed the Jordan.
Day after day they marched, and every day something grew stronger inside them. Not their muscles, but their faith. They began to realize that when you obey God, even when it seems strange, He builds something beautiful inside your heart.
Tomorrow is the 7th day. Tomorrow we march 7 times. And tomorrow you'll see why God wanted us to trust Him.
Have you ever waited for something so exciting you could hardly sleep? That's how the whole camp felt that night. The 7th day wasn't just any day. This was the day when 40 years of trusting God, 6 days of patient marching, and one incredible promise all came together.
Today we find out if God really meant what He said.
I think He did, Papa. I can feel something different today.
Today we march 7 times. On the 7th time, when you hear the long trumpet blast, everyone shout with all your might and watch God do the impossible.
As they marched the first time around, then the second, then the third, you could feel something building. Not just excitement, but God's power getting ready to work.
7 times? Why 7 times today? Something's different. Look at their faces.
Captain, I'm scared. Their God destroyed Egypt, parted seas, and fed them in the desert for 40 years. What if...
The 6th time around, you could have heard a pin drop except for those trumpets. 40,000 people, walking in complete faith, knowing they were about to see God work, And then it happened. The moment that changed everything.
Shout, for the Lord has given you the city.
In one moment, walls that had stood for over 1,000 years came crashing down, not because of human strength, not because of weapons, but because God's people trusted Him enough to obey.
Mama, God really did it. The walls fell down flat, just like He promised.
After the walls fell, something beautiful happened. It wasn't just about conquering a city. The people realized they had learned something that would help them for the rest of their lives.
You see what God taught us this week? He showed us that His ways work, even when they don't make sense to us at first.
I've been thinking about this all day. God didn't need us to bring down those walls. He could have done it with an earthquake or lightning, but He wanted us to learn to trust Him.
And He wanted us to learn it together, as families, as a community. Look how united we became during those 7 days.
Every time we face something that seems impossible, we can remember the stone. We can remember that our God is bigger than any wall we'll ever face.
Joshua wanted to make sure everyone understood the bigger lesson from their incredible week.
The walls that fell today weren't just made of stone. God also broke down walls of doubt in our hearts, walls of fear about the future, walls that made us think we had to fight our battles alone. From now on, when your children face something that seems impossible at school, or when families face problems that seem too big to handle, remember Jericho. Remember that obedience to God brings down walls.
Just like Joshua's people, we face walls in our lives too. Maybe it's being afraid to stand up for what's right. Maybe it's forgiving someone who hurt us. Maybe it's trusting God when things don't make sense. But here's what the Battle of Jericho teaches us. When God asks us to do something, even if it seems strange or scary, obedience always leads to victory. Not always the victory we expect, but always the victory we need. The Israelites learned that day that following God isn't just about rules, it's about trust. And when we trust God enough to obey Him, He does things in our lives that are more amazing than we could ever imagine. As we finish this incredible story, let's think about how it applies to our lives today.
Remember, children, every time you choose to obey God, even when it's hard, you're just like the people who marched around Jericho. You're trusting that God's way is always best.
Here are some questions for your family to talk about this week. First, what walls in your life seem impossible to you right now? Maybe it's a friendship problem, or trouble with school, or feeling afraid about something. Second, can you think of a time when obeying your parents or doing the right thing seemed weird or hard at first, but turned out to be the best choice? And here's your challenge for this week. When God asks you to do something through His Word, through your parents, or through what you know is right in your heart, try trusting Him first before you understand everything. Just like Joshua and the Israelites did. Let's end with this truth you can remember. God's Word says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight." Just like the walls of Jericho, the impossible things in your life are not too big for God. When you trust Him enough to obey, you might be amazed at what walls come tumbling down. Until next time, remember that with God, obedience always brings victory. And no wall is ever too big for the one who loves you most. What would you have felt like walking around those big walls? What walls in your life need God's help? Why do you think God chose marching instead of fighting? When has obeying been hard, but turned out good? How does this story change how we approach impossible situations? What role does community faith play in our spiritual battles? Memory verse: Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. Proverbs 3:5. Thanks for watching. If the story touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe for more biblical adventures. Stay blessed and see you in the next story.